Begin each day pondering death as its climax. Each morning, with a calm mind, conjure images in your head of your last moments. See yourself being pierced by bow and arrow, taking a lightning strike, falling hundreds of feet from a high cliff top, succumbing to a terminal illness, or just dropping dead unexpectedly. Every morning, be sure to meditate yourself into a trance of death. Pretty intense stuff. What's up, everybody? Travis here, and I'm back with my newest book review. Today we're going to be discussing Hagakure, The Secret Wisdom of the Samurai, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo and translated by Alexander Bennett. Before I get started with this book review, I'd encourage everybody to like the video, give it a thumbs up. It only takes a couple seconds and I would really appreciate it. Comment down below, share your thoughts and feedback with me. And if you're so inclined, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to keep coming out with these book reviews. I really want to provide value for you all, so every subscription means the world to me. Also, before I start with this book review, I want to give a special shout out to my friend and training partner, Rob. We train jiu-jitsu together, and he's an absolute beast on the jiu-jitsu mats. And last week, Rob and I were texting about Japanese history and martial arts, and he sends me a picture of the Hagakure book cover. And as soon as I read the word samurai, I was like, okay, I'm going to review this book and post this video to YouTube. So Rob, this book review is for you, brother. Really appreciate it. Starting off with the author Yamamoto Tsunetomo. He was a Japanese samurai back in the 16 and 1700s. Later in his life, he became a Buddhist Zen priest. And the translator of this book is Alexander Bennett, and he is an absolute rock star. Alexander Bennett is professor of Japanese history, martial arts, and Budo out of Kansai University in Japan. And he's also credited with translating some of the most famous books in Japanese history, most notably the Book of Five Rings, written by legendary Japanese swordsman Miyoto Musashi. Getting into this book, Hagakure, it is one of the most famous books in all of Japanese history, and the word Hagakure means in the shadow of the leaves, or another meaning is hidden leaves. And it was written to form a composite of the Japanese samurai Bushido spirit. Bushido is the Japanese word for warrior. And at the time that Tsunetomo was compiling this book in the early 1700s, he was living in a period of time in Japan where the age of the samurai was disappearing. Because from the 1400s all the way to the year 1600, Japan was interlocked in this brutal civil war, and it was called the Sengoku era. And during this era, the Japanese samurai were real-life battlefield warriors. They used swords, spears, bows, eventually guns. And loyalty to the Japanese samurai meant literally dying for your lord. It was the golden age of violent Japanese combat. And then in the year 1600, a Japanese general, military leader, and statesman by the name of Tokugawa Ieyasu, he came along and he won the famous battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600, and this started the Tokugawa shogunate, which was the final feudal military government of Japan that ushered an era of peacetime that spanned over 250 years. And so the samurai, once elite battlefield warriors, suddenly they had no more wars to fight. And they became government officials or administrators in its place. And this book, Hagakure, was written as a reminder of the age of the samurai. It was written during this peacetime period. And so as people started to experience this newfound peace and this comfort, the author wanted to bring back that warrior spirit. And this book reads as a frustrated reminder of what the samurai used to be. It doesn't read like a war manual, but it reads as a spiritual rebellion of comfort. And that tension is there throughout the entire book. And it's also why I think it applies perfectly to our comfort crisis in today's present-day society. The most interesting part of this book for me was how the Japanese samurai talked about death. They embraced death wholeheartedly. The most famous line of this entire book is the way of the samurai is found in death. And it's not the author Tsunetomo trying to say that, oh, you should embrace death because life is worthless. No, he's actually trying to say that if you embrace death fully, then you can live life how it's truly supposed to be lived. And This applies to some of the more common phrases that we hear today, which is live today like it's your last day, live like there's no tomorrow, or even country singer Tim McGraw's famous song, live like you were dying. Tsunetomo observed that most men cling to comfort, they avoid embarrassment, they have a fear of losing their reputation, they protect their status. And on the flip side, if you embrace death fully, you lose the fear of losing your reputation. Fear doesn't paralyze you anymore, and you stop trying to calculate every outcome. Tsunetomo believed that when a man embraces death fully, nothing controls him anymore. Reputation doesn't control him. Status doesn't control him. Comfort doesn't control him. And in a time of peace, he tried to usher in the samurai spirit by bringing in death as a daily motivation. Because when you're no longer afraid to lose your life, you can embrace life and begin living it fully. This book was so intense in terms of the samurai dialogue and their practices and their beliefs. One of the most intense things that they talked about was the concept of suicide. And the Japanese word for suicide is seppuku. And it was so intense the way they described it that it was actually a form of dark comedy to me. I could only help but chuckle at some of these lines. It seemed like for every infraction that a samurai did to his lord, it would be grounds for him having to commit suicide or seppuku. You brought me chocolate ice cream when I asked for vanilla. You must kill yourself now. There was a meeting and you arrived 5 minutes late. I order you to commit seppuku. This water that you brought to me, it was room temperature. I asked for ice cold. You have to off yourself now. And the Japanese samurai that were given the instructions to kill themselves, it's almost like they completely embraced suicide and seppuku. It was totally crazy and backwards. At least that's how it seemed to me. But the reason why Tsunetomo brought up the concept of suicide was because, again, this was a period of peacetime in Japan, and the men around him were getting very comfortable, and so Tsunetomo wanted to remind him that death was only one wrong decision away, and that they shouldn't get too comfortable. They should embrace hardship, and they should always keep death in the back of their minds, or in some cases at the forefront of their minds, and really embrace it so they can live life fully. And also so they wouldn't drift into comfort. In terms of a review score, I give this book an 8.5 out of 10. It was a really fun read. I'm a person who's really interested in martial arts. I train jiu-jitsu, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And I'm really into Japanese history, martial arts. I'm also kind of an uptight, militaristic type of person. And so this stuff really vibes with me. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Sometimes it was a little confusing to read. I assume some stuff gets lost in translation with the Japanese to English text. But overall, it was really fun to read. I think Alexander Bennett did a phenomenal job translating the book. And Yamamoto Tsunetomo was an excellent author, and the words were poetry. And there was a lot of motivation that I took from this book. I wanted to share 3 quotes as always, so I'm just going to pull them up right now. Helps flesh out the book even further. First quote, "If your sword breaks in the thick of battle, fight with your bare hands. If your arms are cut from your body, wrestle your adversary to the ground with your shoulders. If your shoulders are also sliced off, you still have the ability to bite the heads off 10 or 15 enemy warriors." Just shows you the intensity of the Japanese samurai. Next one, "There is no point in one's training in which one reaches the end. The instant you think you have finished, you have already strayed from the path. Realize that nothing you do is perfect until you have taken your last breath." Love that quote. Last one. This one just shows you how intense and death-crazed the samurai were. "If you are killed in the fray, be sure that your corpse falls in the direction of the enemy." This is so intense to me, but a part of it resonates with me. They embrace death and violence so wholeheartedly that the commanders were telling their people, their samurai, okay, even if you're dead, even if the guy kills you, make sure that your corpse flies in the direction of the enemy just so they can feel your power and your presence. Incredible stuff, very powerful. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I post pictures of these quotes daily, so you can follow me for more value there. Thanks everybody so much for watching. All the best. Take care. Until next time. Bye.